Hello everyone, it's Kat and I'm back today to do a bit of a battle of foundations. Now, I recently decided to buy and play around with the new Morphe foundation. This is the Lightform foundation. It only released a few months ago and it's supposed to be like a hydrating, sort of really natural looking foundation. And when I did wear this, I just kept thinking that it was quite similar to the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk. Now, Luminous Silk is ridiculously expensive and it is one of those staple foundations that makeup artists and a lot of people have raved about for decades and decades. Essentially, it is supposed to give you a flawless look. It's not too much coverage. It just sort of enhances your natural skin and gives you a little bit of a glow. I have tried this before. Obviously, I've got a bottle and I found that on my oily combination skin, so I'm 38 years old, I have oily T-zone, I can get dehydrated sort of outer areas, so oily combo. I find that this actually wears really well. A lot of hydrating, glowy foundations sort of slip off during the day. I found that this one actually didn't do that, so I quite liked it. I ended up purchasing it. And I was quite surprised that when I was testing out the Morphe one, I saw a very similar effect. So the price difference is extreme. So in Australia, the Luminous Silk is 30 mils and it retails for $105 full price. You can often find it 10, sometimes 20% off. And the Morphe foundation is also 30 mils and it is 33 Australian dollars. So you can buy more than 3 of these bottles for the price of this, which is quite the difference. So I thought today what I'm going to do is whack this on half my face, whack this on the other half, and we're going to see how it wears over probably a period of about 10 hours. And I'll let you know what the main differences are and what I see throughout wearing them. Now, I do really like the effect of both of these foundations, so I'm really curious to see which one wins. I'm just going to say that for both of these, I have shade issues, and I'll talk about that more maybe towards the end of the video, so if you don't want to watch that, you don't have to know about it, but I've had issues with the shade match of this one, and also I've had issues with finding the right shade with the Morphe one, which is why I've got 2 shades that I tend to mix. So before we get on to the application, I'm just going to have the claims of each foundation on the screen so you can sort of compare and contrast yourself. So the Morphe foundation is supposed to have a natural finish, medium coverage, buildable, hydrating and brightening. It's a weightless, long-wearing formula that diffuses imperfections instantly with undetectable, buildable, medium coverage. It also contains a hydro relief complex, which is supposed to provide short-term and long-lasting moisturization. And it contains hydrating products like glycerin and hyaluronic acid. The Giorgio Armani foundation, they're saying it's a cult classic. It's supposed to be weightless on the skin. It's supposed to impart a flawless lit from within glow created by Pat McGrath. And they're saying that it hasn't been changed for over 15 years. Now, there is a little bit of a conspiracy theory about that. I'll talk about that at the end as well. It's supposed to be a radiant and silky foundation that offers light to medium coverage and is easily buildable and is ideal for all skin types. So there's a few common factors there. It sounds like the Morphe one has more skincare ingredients, but they both are designed for all skin types, all supposed to glow, all supposed to look like they're blurring, lightweight, but the Morphe one is supposed to have medium buildable coverage and the Giorgio Armani one is supposed to be light to medium. And I do think there is a difference in the coverage. Let's get on to the application and then we'll start the wear test. I'm going to start with Luminous Silk because I haven't actually applied this for a little while, so it is a good reminder of what it's like. I am going to try my best to get some out of this tiny sample that I have left. So I'm going to start by applying that with a sponge. This is just a bit of a damp sponge. I'm going to try to see it as if I can get this to go as far as possible because I don't have much left. It applies really nicely. It's looking nice and even. It is covering enough redness, but it's not applying, like it's not looking cakey. It's not looking heavy. The color match is really nice. Now for the Morphe side, I'm actually going to mix my 2 shades because I feel like I'm in between the 2. So I've got light 5N, which is 5 neutral, and light C3, which is a cool. I will talk about the shades a little bit at the end because I do have a problem with the shades in the range. but I do find the best outcome is mixing. All right, also applying this with a sponge. This definitely feels a bit thicker, and instantly I feel like it's got more coverage than that side. I do know that this also, and again, I'll talk about this a little bit more when I'm reviewing it, this does look lighter, but it does tend to oxidize a little bit throughout the day. So I do recommend going in with a lighter and potentially a cooler shade than what you sort of expect. The finish is very similar. So see how dewy and nice that is on my forehead. So again, that's the Morphe side. I don't know if you can see. And then the Armani side. So it looks very similar on the skin. So that's the Morphe on the skin. It's looking very pretty. So it's got a bit of a sheen to it, much like the Armani one. Again, I think the coverage is just a smidge higher. Dare I say that I feel like the pores on this side look a little bit more blurred, and I can see the pores a little bit more on that side. So I feel like the Morphe one blurs skin texture a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do now is just set my base slightly. Now, what I've learned by using the Morphe one is that on my skin anyway, I find it looks best when I don't set it. So it actually has that beautiful glow throughout the day. It does tend to sort of set down, so it doesn't smear on my face, even in my oily areas. And this one sort of feels like it's setting down as well. So I think they can handle being unset. However, around my nose and in my T-zone, I do need to set, and also around my eyes. Now, I don't feel like I need to go in with concealer today. So I'm just going to leave it at the foundation, but I'm just taking a little bit of my Laura Mercier. This is my translucent loose setting powder. I've taken a little bit on the brush. I'm going to tap some off in the lid, so I am going as minimal as I can, and I'm just going to use that to set the areas around my eyes that can crease a little bit on both sides, around my nose, because this is an oily area for me. A little bit more powder for the chin. Again, a very greasy spot. And then just a little bit here where I can sort of get a little bit of greasiness as well. The rest of it I'm just going to leave, but I'm going to go away now, do the rest of my makeup, show you how everything is sitting. I might use some cream products so we can see how they work with the base and if they fight it or if they blend nicely. So I'm back with my makeup done, and a few things I want to note. So I didn't add any concealer, which is great. So this is just the foundation. I did add a little bit of blush, no bronzer, no highlighter. So the shine that you're seeing is from the base. You can see that when I move my face, the shine follows the light. So it's here, top to the cheekbones, and then down this area. I did put a sort of matte mousse blush on. This is just from NARS. It is the Air Matte Mousse in the shade Torch. I wanted to see how a sort of putty sits on both sides, like if it picks up, if it lifts the base. They didn't, it was fine. I do have to say that with the Morphe side, I feel like there's a bit more glow. So I'm not sure if you can see, there is just a little bit more glow happening. Probably the same here as well. There's glow on the Armani side for sure, but I feel like the Morphe side is just a bit more glowy. I avoided all highlighter because I didn't want that to change how the base was looking throughout the day. So it's just a bit of color in the cheeks from a blush. Both sides look really nice. I love the amount of coverage. It's like I can see things coming through, so it looks like normal skin. It doesn't look like I've got a heavy layer of foundation on, and also on my oily combination skin I can feel some hydration. I definitely feel like the Morphe side feels a little bit more moist. There's more moisture there, and that's probably why I'm seeing a lot more glow. Just gonna zoom in and show that I feel like this has blurred the skin just a little bit more than this side has. I sort of feel like I can see more texture, whereas this side actually has more imperfections. But you can see how dewy that face looks. And again, that's not highlighter, that's just the foundation. Everything looks quite nice. It's sitting quite nicely everywhere else. Chin, it's all looking nice. So we'll do a wear test and see how it looks in a few hours. So it's been about 2.5 hours since I put the foundation on. Both are still looking perfect. Again, bit more coverage, a bit more shine, but they look gorgeous. So loving them both. All right, unfortunately we've already had to break out the artificial lighting. It is 7:30 at night. It's already pitch black, and I was hoping to do a last check-in with natural lighting, but the day got away from me. So I started this wear test just before midday, so this is 7.5 hours wear. I will continue it for a few more hours, at least 10 hours. But I am seeing a slight difference, but they're both still looking really, really good. I actually have a friend over who is an avid Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk fan, and I think even he's surprised that these sides look quite similar. Knowing the difference in the brands and the price point. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what I've been noticing. But again, it's very, like, it's almost splitting hairs. But can we just say that overall it is glowy and it is looking really nice, and nothing has really broken it down too much. So it is a very pretty look. Both sides I think are really pretty. Okay, close up for the Giorgio Armani side. Firstly, I have noticed that it's starting to oxidize very, very slightly. So it's looking a little bit more yellow compared to my neck than it was before. So I wasn't noticing any color difference. It's very minute, but it's still there. It's very glowy. Nothing has really broken down too much. The areas that usually break down on me are around my nose, sometimes on my forehead here and on my chin. The chin is looking excellent. I have blown my nose a couple of times because I'm just recovering from a cold. So there is some rubbing off, and there's a little like dots there, almost like I've got like minute breakout. So this is wearing off more than it is on this side. But one thing I've noticed on the Morphe side, it is a lot more dewy. So it is a lot glowier. It feels really plump though. So it's not feeling like it's smearing off my face or transferring. So I'm not touching it and I'm leaving finger marks. It is still holding together really nicely. But one thing I have noticed, I'm hoping I can get on camera. I'm not sure if you can see, but the cream blush has worn off a little bit here. So there is a little bit of patchiness there with the cream blush. It's very minor, but I can definitely see some sort of patchiness just in there. Otherwise, it's holding up really nicely. The color match for me is really good. Unfortunately, it's two shades mixed together, but still holding up really, really nicely compared to that one. And everything is just looking glowy and dewy and really pretty. I think if I was to wear a powder blush with this, it would hold up a bit nicer. I really like them. I feel like I put up too much blush on that side as well. Like that looks bolder than that side to me. So maybe that was an application error as well. All right, so it's after 10 o'clock at night. So it's been on for a good 10 hours. Again, it's pretty much looking identical as the 7-hour mark, maybe a little bit shinier. Everything is feeling really good and sort of in place. And I'd go out wearing this. It looks totally fine. Everything looks good. Okay, it's the next day, and I thought I will conclude what I think about both these foundations, talk about some differences, talk about some similarities, talk about some pros and cons. I do want to mention that I am wearing the combination again. So Armani on this side. I do have a glowy blush, a powder blush this time, and I've got the Morphe on this side. I will insert any footage if I can see any differences to what I saw yesterday. And also I'm really curious to see how the powder blush wears versus the cream blush, since on the Morphe side, the cream blush did sort of start wearing down at the 10-hour mark. So I'm not trying to claim that these are dupes by any means, but they do a similar thing and they have a similar effect on my skin anyway. So they're both sort of glowy, more natural foundations that feel really comfortable on the skin, tend to perfect the skin and wear a long time. Now, the differences are that I find that the Morphe one has a little bit more coverage, which is reflected in the claim. It's saying a medium buildable coverage, whereas the Armani one is a light medium buildable coverage. I do find that I'm less inclined to need concealer with this one, and you can stretch this out a little bit further, whereas sometimes if I'm having a bad skin day, I feel like I need to build up the Armani one, and I use quite a lot. The Morphe one on me does tend to look a little bit more hydrated and a little bit more glowy throughout the day. It doesn't get slippery and sort of transfer off my skin, but it definitely has more of a glowy effect, whereas the Armani one has a glow, but it's not as sort of dewy looking, if that makes sense. I also find that on application, the Morphe one tends to blur pores a little bit more, but I think throughout the day, the Armani one tends to keep that blurred effect for longer. So the differences are sort of splitting hairs because they both deliver a very, very similar effect. And what I love about both of these is that for my oily combination skin, I do want something that adds hydration, but something that doesn't slip off the oily areas. And these both tick those boxes. They're really, really beautiful effects, and I think they're gorgeous foundations. The Luminous Silk is known for makeup artists because it also doesn't have flashback. I did do a test in the dark, and both of these looked really good with flash on my phone. Unfortunately, my concealer wasn't the greatest, or the concealer and powder combination, but the base looked really good. So they both are really good with flash photography. Both of these are also created in quite reputable countries. So this is created in Italy, and this one's created in France. So they both have some really good qualities about them. Now, packaging, they're both glass bottles with both have lids and pumps. The difference is, and this is annoying to me, so if I pick up the Giorgio Armani one, it stays on really, really tight. If I pick up the Morphe one, it generally falls off. So the packaging isn't quite as good for the Morphe one, but for the price point, like I can deal with it. So I will have the price difference on the screen. So Giorgio Armani cost per mil in Australian dollars and probably US dollars, and same as Morphe, because they are worlds apart. Of course, you can get them both on sale, but still, worlds apart. A few negatives that I want to talk about. They both have issues with shades, in my opinion, and both very different issues. So the Morphe one, I'll have swatches on the screen. I find that the range leans very, very yellow. So if you are more of a neutral person or a cooler tone person, you might struggle to find your shade. I have to mix 2 to get my right shade. Light 5 neutral should be my normal shade because I'm quite a neutral person, but I also have to mix it with light 3C, not only because it does lean a little bit more yellow, but it also oxidizes throughout the day, so it gets more yellow. Now you'll notice in the wear test that I did yesterday, it didn't oxidize, and that's because I purposefully go for something a little bit lighter, something a little bit cooler than what I normally go for. So this would match my skin perfectly just normally, but I have to add this in to stop it from developing over the day. So just be really aware that if you do have cooler tones or neutral tones, these do oxidize, they do get darker, and they lean very yellow. So I would recommend getting a sample, wearing it for a couple of days, and then probably going down a shade and leaning a little bit cooler than what you expect, because that's the biggest problem I find with the shade range. But otherwise, when you find the right combination, and mine did have to be mixing of 2, so I sort of do a pump of each and it works perfectly. Still, buying the 2 is cheaper than buying this one. So for me, it's not that big a deal, but it is something that's a bit of a teething issue at the start. Now, the issue that I had with the Giorgio Armani shade match, you might tell that this is way too dark for me. And when I actually did try this on, I reached for a sample that I had. Both of these are actually the shade 4.5. So I'll show you close up. They're both 4.5. I got this sample as a sort of trial to find my shade from the Armani website. And it was a really good shade match for me. Then when I went and bought it from the same website, it was like 6 months later, I got a shade that is also 4.5, but a drastically different shade. This is way too dark for me. I am wearing it today, but I've had to mix it with a lightening product to make it match me, because otherwise that is way too dark. So something has happened in that time where the sample is a perfect shade, the full size isn't. And I did hear a few people say that they've actually since reformulated this and they haven't announced it. So where they're claiming that they haven't reformulated it in over 15 years, apparently recently they've had to take out an ingredient. I can't substantiate this, so it's just a theory, but in Europe they were banning an ingredient. This had it in it, is what I've heard, and they've actually had to reformulate it. And during that process, the shades may have been changed slightly. So I'll show you the difference between the full size 4.5 and the sample size. They're very, very different. And I actually contacted customer service about it. They didn't provide me any answer. It took months of chasing them up, and eventually they just kept saying that they were investigating it and finding out what the cause was of the difference between the sample versus the full size. And eventually they just said, we'll refund you, and they didn't provide me an answer. So I'll zoom in and show you the difference. So this is the sample, the one that I was hoping to buy because that matches me really well. And this is the full size. You can see it is very different. So I would recommend buying Giorgio Armani in store and actually testing it out, because what your shade may have been may have changed, or there is some very significant fluctuation from batch to batch. And there's a proof that they're both shade 4.5, so they should both be identical. So in conclusion, if I had to pick one that I liked more, shade issues aside, so if you found your perfect shade, I would say that they are slightly different but are very similar, and it just depends on what you like. So if you like something a little bit more dewier, I would go for this one. If you like something that is a little bit more lightweight and like lighter coverage, I'd go for this one. But overall, the price trumps it in my opinion. I would go for Morphe any day of the week. This will become my everyday foundation, whereas the Giorgio Armani one is sort of like a special occasion one for me, because I just can't justify spending $105 every few months to replace my everyday foundation. So for me, the Morphe one wins. I think the price point is amazing. It's got skincare ingredients, so if you want hyaluronic acid and a few of those sort of ingredients, it has it. It's got claims that it's supposed to hydrate for, I think it's like 18 hours or something. I'll have the claims on the screen. They've done a lot of research, and I just think for the price point, I'm more than happy to deal with the lid that falls off. I'm happy to adjust for the oxidization. This is a really beautiful foundation. It is very similar on me. That's the disclaimer, on me, to the effect that I get from Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk. And I just think this is great. They've done a fantastic job. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've tried these foundations and what you think about them, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.